Alright, that was 1 minute late. That's because I'm an idiot. How are you doing, Critter? Hope you're doing well. So let's see where everybody's at. I'll give a couple more minutes for people to filter in. Critter, which picture are you talking about? That's cool. So, let's see, what else was I working on? Oh, well. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Oh, wow, everybody just spilled in like at the last minute. Okay. Hey, artist. Hey, George. Hey, Forum. Hi, Pauline. Let's gonna give it a couple more minutes. Oh. So, you guys having a nice day? I hope you guys did. Oh, hey, Parallax, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Gotta check my emails real quick, make sure there's nothing new. Nope, nothing new. Well, we'll get to Judge Holbrook in a second. We're gonna cover the Husel trial. um, let's see. Matthew coming out tonight? Usually he's up, but maybe he's sleeping. I don't blame him. Sleeping is important. Yet Parallax, it is boring, and that's the problem. This is almost like a civil case, this is like a medical malpractice case, or just any number of civil cases. They are fucking boring, and they are absolutely awful. And I don't know why I'm wearing these right now. I don't need them. Uh, but yes, they are absolutely horrible. Well, I guess, yeah. But you know what? I don't blame him. It's considering it literally is 2:30 in the morning where he's at. I don't blame him for sleeping in a little bit or oversleeping. So, yeah, I guess you know what? There's 7 here. We'll get started. Um, the trial's boring, but I mean, part of the issue is the prosecution needs to prove this stuff through medical experts. You may agree that 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl is a ton, but you actually need a doctor to come in and explain through expert opinion why that's a ton and why that's dangerous, why that's reckless, why that's outside medical norms. Without that, you don't really have a case. Um, just getting a jury to convict because the jury thinks it's a lot in a scientific and technical situation, you wouldn't be able to sustain a verdict. Um, hey Shannon. Well, the jury's understanding, and I think they understand what's going on. Um, but that's part of the issue with the American system is we presume that if you instruct the jurors and educate them, they will understand what's going on. Um, but like George Carlin said, the average person you meet on the street, half of America is dumber than they are. So, that's the danger. But I don't know, see how else we can do it. Um, so what does that mean at the end of the day? Uh, I still think, and I think we saw that today really in display. Well, it's like the questions could be recorded and played for every witness. Yeah, they could. But part of this is when you have a murder or there is a crime with a victim and it's a serious crime with a victim, you've got to put that person on. Like that person had each one of those people that died had a family, had kids, had a wife. Um, you've got to put those people on. I mean, number one, I think that you could almost argue they have a right under Marcy's law, but number two, the jury's going to want to know, okay, yeah, he killed these people and he stole them away from their families. So you've got to bring all that stuff in. Now, yes, every doctor I don't think is necessary, but this is a very unique case. So I think they're trying to do this belt and suspender style, where if we do it, if you have a belt on and suspenders on, your pants never fall down. So I think that's what they're trying to do. Well, parallax, yeah, that's another issue, but I think we've talked about that before. You don't want to you don't want to encourage that. So, there. Now, I will say, just like many of the other days, today we saw with the nurse that came on, what did we learn? Everybody liked Dr. Husel. Dr. Husel was great. Now, this one, the state brought him on, and I'm not sure what they thought was going to happen because apparently him and Dr. Husel were like work buddies. Somebody mentioned a bromance. I think one of the other nurses maybe mentioned that before. This guy said Dr. Husel did everything right. I know he went to the Cleveland Clinic. I knew he was well trained. So I'm not sure what that witness was going to do, and I think somebody said it, because I didn't hear it initially because I was busy taking care of things. The state made it sound like they were kind of scrambling to put other people on, like they weren't sure they were done yet. That guy doesn't sound like they prepped him very well, because if they did, they would have interviewed him and said, wow, we don't really want to put this guy in the stand, because as soon as the cross came up, oh yeah, Dr. Hughes was awesome, he's the best dude ever. And then what did you see on redirect? The prosecutor was very exasperated. And you could see he was kind of leaning up against the podium, and you could see his arms flailing around once in a while. He wasn't very happy with what happened. That's the sign of somebody who didn't like what they saw and how things went. So, yeah, he's got to be careful. I think the jury could see that. But once again, I think, who said it earlier? Every time the defense gets up and does cross-examination on a critical witness, it just blows absolute holes in the case for the state. Once again, I think that happened again today. When we go back, we see that doctor they had up there for a couple of days out of Tampa. Well, that doctor, ended up having to admit, I don't do palliative care. I'm not exactly in that field. I think that's an important thing to think about. Much like the Kim Potter trial. To find an expert that would support their findings. A palliative care specialist. I don't think would agree that Husel committed murder. They might disagree with what he did or how he did it, but I don't think you could find a palliative care specialist who's going to say Husel was wrong and did something wrong. It did something in such a way that he killed these people prematurely. We learned about that today with a couple of the testimony from some of the victims. A lot of these people were on death's door, if not already walking through it, by the time Husel got involved. So, yeah, and that's the thing. You think the prosecution's getting somewhere, and then the defense comes in and tears it all up. Yeah, and it should be happening that often with every witness, but once again, The prosecution keeps trying to hammer this theme, but then the defense, they're introducing their own theme. And that's the problem. I think, I'm still convinced he didn't do anything wrong. And the fact they haven't thrown up a true palliative care specialist, I mean, if they really wanted to show Husel was wrong, they'd find somebody who does what Husel did. And they can't. And just like in the Kim Potter trial, their use of force expert was some dopey guy who hasn't been a cop in like almost 20 years. That should tell you something. That's the expert they could find. Especially the state, you have an infinite checkbook compared to the defense. I mean, Husel's got a pretty good checkbook for being a doctor, but still, anybody they bring is really going to be, well, it's not that they have the wrong experts, that's what they could get. And that's who was willing to testify. I bet they did talk to some palliative care people who said, I can't go up there and say to a degree of medical certainty he killed these people and acted improperly. What do you think of the state wanting to include lessers and the defense fighting it? Are you talking about Husel? I think that's fine. There's no indication of these being manslaughter. I mean, their argument was he intentionally killed these people. But now the evidence is coming out, well, we're not really sure that he, intentionally did it. Okay, so that opens you up to maybe manslaughter and whatnot. But I agree from the defense standpoint, no, if you think you're going to win, and I think they think they're going to win, you don't give the state an opportunity to get a W on 14 counts of manslaughter. That's still like 10 years a pop. But no, they came into this trial, they wanted murder, they were being Billy Badass. No, screw that. Hold them to that standard. Fine. If they don't want that, they should dismiss it and refile as manslaughters. That would show you how critically horrible their case is. The fact they're going around and wanting to do lessers on all these offenses shows you, once again, they had like 25. Oh, they're going to get rid of a bunch. Well, now we need to get to some lesser and included. Uh-oh, 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 uh-oh. Boom, and they hit the floor. They don't have a very good case, and it's crumbling. Well, Parallax, here's the issue. These people aren't even in pain. I mean, these people aren't even probably conscious half the time that they're dealing with. These are people who are intubated, they're on ventilators, they've got organ failures. One guy, I think we talked about last week, we're not even sure he wasn't brain dead at the time, which, that's a big deal. So these people, their body might be in pain, but they're not conscious. So once again, that brings up a big problem. How the hell do you know what's going on? We don't. I think it's gonna be hard to convince the jury. The pharmacist wouldn't have flagged Husel, none of the families would have known anything was wrong. Yeah, probably. But even then, I think some people were, this many people, somebody's always bound to ask questions. So I think it would have come out at some point. I don't know but I agree, Shannon, overall, a lot of people wouldn't have raised any questions. Were the patients in hospice? Verna, no, they weren't in hospice. They were in the intensive care unit at the hospital. But these were people who showed up at the hospital with and they were in critical states. Organ failure, massive. One lady that today they were talking about, her heart was not able to survive. She was too sick to survive the surgery that may keep her alive. But also this lady's in her 80s, so how much longer is she going to live anyway? A lot of the people Husel dealt with, that are the victims here, they're all on death's door. They're dead, they're dying. Now, the nurse that testified today said dying could be any number of things long term, but in reality, most of the people that we're dealing with probably weren't going to live out the week. If they did, that would be a big surprise. Just barely hanging on. But yeah, these are people who probably could be in a hospice setting, and in a hospice setting, they'd be just getting doped up beyond belief till they quit, their heart quit beating. It's not, well, it depends on the type of doctors. Um, if there's doctors who want to be good witnesses and good experts, they will turn on each other for money. But most doctors won't do that. So I think you're right there overall. Um, yeah, and that's the other thing too. You don't want a compromise verdict. I wouldn't want it. I mean, if I'm Jose Baez and Husel, I'm thinking they got this, and I think they do. I think he's going to walk at the end of the day. Yeah, these well, not all of them were older. A couple of them were middle aged, but the ones who were middle aged were chronic drug users, big time heroin users. Like I said, organ failure. These people were falling apart. They weren't gonna make it. So these people were not long for this earth anyway. By the time Dr. Husel stepped in. With that being said, guys, it's dragging on. If we could find another trial, we might skip to that. I'm just having this on for right now because it's the only game in town. Um, RaDonda, Vaught, I know she's her trial's going tomorrow. I will. Yeah, one lady was 37. One guy was like 40. People in between. Um, I will say I'm gonna be busy. I will not be in at all. I'll get stuff kind of set up, but it's basically Critter and you guys kind of calling your shots, what you guys want to watch, how you want to watch it. If you want to watch clips and kabuts the whole day, that's cool. If you guys want to watch the how do you say her name? Um, RaDonda Vaught. If you guys want to watch her instead, that's cool too. Whatever you guys want to do tomorrow, because Husel's done for the day. So, however you guys feel about it. Just wanted to let you guys know. Yeah. Now, did all the patients' families get money after the deaths? I'm betting there were settlements for all the families. If they're gonna run around screaming, if this hospital's gonna run around screaming, our doctor killed somebody, I'm betting they settled with everybody. Probably to varying amounts, because once again, part of a settlement is, Grandma Ethel's, who's 90 years old and died and was probably gonna not last the year, probably didn't get as much money as the guy who was 37 and the career drug user, but he could still live for a while. Um, oh, geez, for him, how much is Jose charging? Whew, a lot, a lot. I'll say this, tell you this much: if Husel wasn't a doctor, he probably wouldn't be able to afford Baez right now. This is going to be a massive defense. Now, also, I could see Baez doing something with his wrongful termination and the lawsuits he's got going on. Maybe he's defending him, then he can go in and scoop up a payday that way. Yeah, the families had no idea until the hospital came to settle. But the hospital settled and everybody got paid. So, yeah, these people got money out of it at this point. But the defense bringing that up doesn't really change or make them biased. So I'm glad this defense stayed away from that. No one was thrilled with Vaught day 3. Yeah, that's the thing, Critter. I've not found a day 1 or day 2 for that one. So I mean, I'm surprised it's not getting any big time coverage. I kind of perused court TV this afternoon for like 5 minutes to see if it was there while I was at court. They aren't really talking about it, so it's a little weird. But yeah, if you guys are gonna sit here and watch cat videos or whatever, have fun doing it. I just won't be around. And then we'll have the weekend off. So, yeah, I'm assuming to have somebody like Jose Baez defend you is not cheap. Not cheap at all. That's easily, I could see that being like $1 million, all said and done. I mean, remember, it's not just him. Those are his attorneys. Those attorneys with him are his attorneys from his firm. If you Google Jose Baez's law firm, Menashe's there, the other guy's there. So that's like the whole team, the whole band came to play. I think Husel is overshadowing, and people may think not another one. Yeah, I mean, that might be part of it. But also, it's a little more interesting because it's literally the nurse herself who screwed up. So it's not even yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, it could just turn into a long weekend. I mean, and for those of you guys who watch during work, you could actually get some work done. Trust me, I know the same feeling. um, Another thing to talk about, Billy Ray Turner. I know we were watching that on Monday. The jury came back fairly quickly. I know Matthew, if he was, I was hoping he'd show up because I know he wanted to gloat about it. Um, Matthew got it right. The jury was out for a couple hours, and he got it exactly on the nose. How long it would be? They found him guilty of all the counts, the first-degree homicide. Um, yeah. I mean, I thought it'd be a little quicker, but yeah, it came in quick. He's got a minimum mandatory sentence of 60 years. Now, the other two counts, the conspiracy and the facilitation, those are going to get sentenced at a later date, but he's already serving now his 60-year sentence. The judge imposed that immediately. That looks like that was mandatory as a function of law, so there's no need to have a separate sentencing hearing where they evaluate factors. Literally, you're guilty of this, automatically you serve it. So he's going to serve 60 years. If he's a good boy, at 85%, he might be released, so 51 years from now. And I forget how old he was, but how old was Billy Ray Turner? How old is Billy Ray Turner? He's 34. So he's 34. So he is going to he's going to die in prison probably. I mean, if he lives to if he does 60 years, he gets out at 94. I mean, how many of us are going to live till 94? Just the odds. I mean, the only thing that helps him is he's going to have state medical care. If he gets out at 85, that might help him some. So, 1 second, guys. I need to take this. Sorry, somebody was at the door. Yeah, so what do we learn? Yes, if you're going to commit crimes, leave your cell phone at home. Don't bring it anywhere near there. The other part is, don't commit the crime next to your house. Aside from Jimmy Martin, once again, no relation, who basically, testified this is probably one of the probably 20, 25 murders that guy's been involved with. The cell phone data was the most damning thing. The times, the locations. These guys lived down the street from each other and then they murdered somebody like almost in between their houses. Gee, I wonder what happened. I mean, in the defense, they didn't have much to work with. I mean, they did what they could. I don't know if I would have been able to defend it better. Maybe if I saw some of the data. But there's only so much you can do. Now, I will point out the way they got a little lippy and huffy and stompy and whiny. You can't do that. You can't do that crap. The judge handled it very well. He wasn't Judge Borowski, but he wasn't going to take their shit. But if stuff doesn't go your way, well, Parallax, a lot of people, remember, The Wire's like 20 years old now. First season of The Wire is over 20 years old. So you have to remember that. But, going to his attorneys, acting like the Ivory and Lamar and his other attorney getting upset, not liking things, huffing and puffing. If shit doesn't go your way, you got to deal with it. You are a rock. It's as though you expect, Your Honor, I would just object, have noted for the record. Thank you. And, move on. That's how you got to handle it. If you huff and puff and piss and shit your pants, especially you do that in front of the jury and the judge calls you out, well, that makes you look bad. That's an embarrassing thing. The jury notices that stuff. I wouldn't want to have that happen in front of a jury. That'd be embarrassing. That'd be mortifying. I wouldn't do it anyway because I'm not a little baby, but oh, Bob Murphy. Okay, hey, thanks for. Ooh, we're gonna have to look at that real quick. But yes, I agree, Parallax. You don't use phones, and The Wire's a great example. Even back when they're using the shitty flip phones, and switching SIM cards. Yeah, don't use the phones. If you're gonna do it, you've got to do it like how they're doing it, where they throw them away right away. But even then, don't use phones. It's interesting, like the Mafia back in the 80s, they thought cell phones were untraceable. And they couldn't be intercepted. Well, they found out they were wrong. But Bob brought up something, and we're going to take a look at it. This will be interesting. Share screen. Okay. Franklin County Clerk of Courts. Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy. Public records. Search public records. Accept. Last name Husel. First name William. Court. Criminal. Sorry, guys, I've been here before, so I'm kind of chugging along on this. Yeah, Bob, thank you for the tip. What? Oh, did it, like... Hold on, I'll bring you guys to the screen I'm on. I don't know why it did that. So here's where it is if you guys want to look at yourself for things on the case. Type in search, you want the 19 case, because all this other stuff here, there's other people who have names similar, so you don't want all that. And yes, if you're looking at this as case 2,735 in 2019, but remember, Columbus is a big town, so it makes sense. If you want to see here, a bunch of different charges were dismissed. A bunch of them are pled not guilty to. Okay, motion in limine filed. Ooh. Alrighty, I want to see. Looks like we got 2 to look at. Does this show up on the screen or not? Okay, yeah, Bob, thank you. This is actually very important. And we may look at, see what this says. Okay, yeah, we're going to read this. Okay, guys, so, real quick. Oh, wow, that worked. Cool, I just figured out, like a boomer, how to run StreamYard. I can switch tabs. Okay, so this is a motion in limine that was filed. A motion in limine is just an opportunity to restrict the introduction of some evidence, okay? And we're going to zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so hopefully everybody can read that. This is in all this stuff up here on the top. This is all electronic filing, so instead of getting, I think I mentioned this before. Instead of getting a kind of like stamps on stuff, although that's my stamp, but if you've ever seen court documents, you take them in and the clerk, they stamp them, and it's got the big clock thing, and it's like ka-chunk. This is what electronic stamping looks like up here. So that's pretty standard. Very common at the federal level, too, if you do electronic filing. In the Court of Common Pleas, Franklin County, Ohio, Criminal Division, Judge Holbrook, State of Ohio versus Dr. Husel. Okay, state's motion in limine to exclude testimony of Dr. Joel Zivit. Pursuant to Ohio Rule 703, so Dr. Zivit impermissibly bases his conclusions on review of the medical records and a conversation with Dr. Husel. Evidence Rule 703 prohibits an expert from basing their opinion on inadmissible evidence such as hearsay. Further, the Ohio Supreme Court has made it abundantly clear that expert witnesses are not permitted to opine on the credibility of individuals, as this invades the province of the jury. So, this doctor sounds like he reviewed the medical records, but then also consulted with the doctor, which this is a little different than a lot of normal situations. Your defendant is an expert. He's a professional himself. Dr. Husel, if, let's say he was never being charged with crimes, he could testify in a trial. That wouldn't be impossible. He could be a medical expert himself. So, doctors, and that's really the best way for these doctors to understand what happened. Talk to the doctor who did it. Just like a mechanic, if a mechanic's trying to figure out what happened, he would talk to the mechanic that did it initially. Now, the issue in this situation, these state witnesses are not going to be allowed to talk to the defendant. Nobody in the right mind would do it, and they wouldn't want to do that. if they even did care to do it. So, um, hope that is wow. Okay, I'm not sure if you're wowing at me or wowing at what we're reading, but we'll get back to it. We could bring up Rule 703. Well, actually, we'll start off. We'll keep reading for a second. Pursuant to Ohio Rules of Evidence 104A, prior to allowing testimony to the jury, the court must make a determination as whether he's qualified to testify as an expert on the subject matter, and whether or not his opinions meet the requisite threshold of admissibility required by the rules of evidence and binding judicial precedent. So normally when you hear people talk when they testify, hey doctor, where did you go to? Did you go to college? Yeah, where are you from? Okay, did you end up going to college? Yeah, I got a degree in biology. I went to Harvard Law Medical School. I became an expert in heart surgery. Yeah, I have a fellowship doing it. I've done things all around the world. I've trained people. That's how you establish somebody's ability as an expert. Now, your expert can also be a mechanic. Hey, how long have you been a mechanic? I've been a mechanic 20 years. Where'd you get your training? Oh, I got my training through insert wherever community college, or I went to technical school, or I was in the military and became a mechanic. Do you have training? Yeah, I do, training every year. I learn new things, learn new equipment, and it's always going on. That's how you establish somebody's an expert in something. And there's different ways to establish that expert ability. And that's what you see, and that's why Rule 104 talks about it. And that's why the attorneys will ask the court, will they recognize as an expert? And if the court recognizes your witness as an expert, you can then use them in the expert mode, where they can opine on things, normally that nobody would be allowed to or able to. In Daubert, and I know Daubert, some people call it Daubert or whatnot, it's Daubert. It's called a Daubert hearing, and that's from a Supreme Court case they decided. In Daubert versus Dow Pharmaceuticals here, and you can see 1993, the trial court's the one in charge of that. So Judge Holbrook's in charge of determining whether or not things are expert testimony. Trial courts do not have the discretion to abandon this option. Even then, I don't know what they think is going to happen. If you're questioning a verdict or you're questioning an expert, you can have what's called a Daubert hearing, basically, and qualify this doctor beforehand. That way, you're not even getting it within earshot of a jury. But that's normally done pre-trial. Now, it sounds like the state only found out about this because of material being given to them by the defense, but the issue is that expert doesn't necessarily know what to talk about until he knows what the state's talked about. So your defense expert's going to be a little more reactionary in the timeline. They believe that Dr. Ziffert relied on impermissible material to form his opinions for this matter. However, if the court feels to the hearing necessary, they want to conduct it outside the presence of the jury, allowing Dr. Ziffert to be called as a witness in this matter. So the state's even saying if we have to, we don't want to do this in front of the jury. It looks like there is a footnote, though, and this situation is distinguishable from those in this matter where the state or defendant employed an expert that has also been retained for the related civil matters. In those situations, the experts were permitted and required to base their opinions on different matters as required by the respective rules for the two cases. Dr. Ziffert has not been retained in the civil matter. No, this is solely a criminal expert. Because Dr. Husel was probably sued along with the hospital, but people also probably sued Dr. Husel individually for wrongful death. So he's probably still fighting those claims as well until his criminal case is over. But yeah, this looks like it's a solely criminal expert. The state was unable to bring this motion in limine prior to the start of the trial, as the court permitted the defendant to provide the state with his expert names and reports after the trial had begun. But once again, like I said, the defense expert doesn't know what he's going to talk about until he knows what the state expert's going to talk about. It's hard to respond with a play and respond with an action until you know what the other side does first. Let's see here. The defendant provided the state with Dr. Ziffert's expert report on February 25th. after the start of trial will be on the 21-day rule set forth in Rule 16K. I'm pretty sure the state fucked up on that a couple of times as well, and that's been allowed. So, anyway, this is interesting. We're actually going to see part of his opinion. I'm curious to... kind of should go back and make sure you guys aren't all sleeping. Exactly, George. This is what I would say. Yes, I would be pointing this out if I was Jose Baez. Why the fuck are we doing this now? Why now? You guys had all this time. We gave it to you the 25th. Why aren't you jumping up and down screaming on February 25th, Judge, this is out of time? They're now waiting because the case is ending. Their case is about to wrap up. And I think they realize, oh, we're taking on a ton of water. And they might even realize, oh, we're sinking. So, hi, Hellcat. So, yeah, let's... sorry, I was just checking in on you guys to make sure you weren't sleeping, because I actually am interested in this. So, Dr. Zivit wrote, I believe, based on my review of the medical records and in conversation with Dr. Husel, prescribing of fentanyl and midazolam were for the sole purpose of providing the relief of pain and anxiety to patients as they face death because of concurrent critical illness. Such actions reflect the best of the bioethical principle of beneficence, or whatever. Dr. Husel sought the relief of pain and anxiety for his dying patients in a way that comports with the standards of practice in the state of Ohio. There's no question as to whether Dr. Zivit spoke with the defendant. Now, I'm curious to know, too, because I'm betting I know the answer to this. Dr. Joel Zivit. I'm betting he is a palliative care specialist. Let's find out together. Anybody want to take a bet that I'm right? Because I bet a lot of you guys are thinking that, too. You know, who is this guy? Share screen. Let's find out together. Oh, he's an anesthesiologist. Okay. Oh, would you look at that? I think we found him. So here, unlike a lot of the other experts so far, he's trained and practiced. Oh, actually, it's interesting. In the U.S. and Canada, and they do different things up there. I think they even do assisted suicide, and it's been that way for a while up there. His clinical expertise and research abroad include the care of critically ill patients in the OR and ICU, education and scholarly work in bioethics, and that's where, for bioethics, is it ethical to help your patients ease their pain and suffering? Is it ethical for you to do certain things? You know, think about things like assisted suicide and whatnot. Is that something you're allowed to do? I'm not sure what the anthropology of conflict resolution is. Pharmacoeconomics. That sounds a lot like drug dealing. Pharmacoeconomics. I'll have to keep that in mind when I go to court tomorrow and meet with the prosecutor. You know, he's just involved in pharmacoeconomics. And variety of topics related to anesthesiology, critical care monitoring, and practice. And this is interesting. Zivit is an expert on physician participation in lethal injection. This guy seems pretty well versed. He's not just some doctor who works in a hospital. I think that's very important. Yeah. Hi, Gabby. Hope you're doing well. So, I think that's something, there's a lot here. And unlike the other cases, there is a there. But let's get back to this and see what else they're talking about. He spoke with Dr. Husel. Now, they're going to explain in here, and I'm not going to bring up the rules of evidence, but because they're going to explain it here. Admissibility of expert opinion testimony is governed by Rule 702 and 703 in Ohio. And generally speaking, most of your states are going to be labeled and numbered the same way as well. So, even if you're in like Montana or Alaska, it's probably Rule 702 and 703. they'll probably track fairly similar to this. Um, when they talk about um, so when you talk about here that the witness testimony relates to matters beyond the knowledge or experience of a layperson, well, none of us here know anesthesiology or palliative care. They have specialized knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education regarding that testimony. Most doctors have that. I mean, let's be real. And the witness's testimony is based on reliable scientific or technical information. This guy teaches at Emory University down in Atlanta, and he does training and whatnot. I think he qualifies under 702. But the issue I think they're going to get down to is the facts or data in the particular case upon which the expert bases an opinion or inference may be those perceived by the expert or admitted in evidence at the hearing. So far, it sounds like nothing from Dr. Husel, statement-wise, has been introduced. So I think that's where they're going to try to get him. The party offering a witness as an expert has the burden of establishing that witness is qualified to competently give such testimony. Now, you guys see how this is underlined. This is them adding emphasis. The prosecution is adding this emphasis. And as you can see here, this is what a legal citation looks like. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. In Ohio, they try to number things by paragraph for modern cases. So that's what you see like paragraph 25. But then you get down here to emphasis added. That was them adding the emphasis saying, hey, judge, this is really important. Sometimes you may bold this. You might italicize it. You might do it a bunch of different ways, but you're allowed to do that to draw attention to what's going on. They're claiming that it's based on impermissible hearsay. This conversation with Dr. Husel is a hearsay problem. And it is hearsay, technically. It's an out-of-court statement being used to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's an out-of-court statement by Dr. Husel being used to prove the truth of what Dr. Zivit wants to say, that Husel did nothing wrong. And this is the issue, because the state may introduce his statements as statements against interest as a party opponent under 801D2. So if he had spoken to the police and it was recorded, that's not hearsay. The police could give a summary of his statement. So that's how. Remember what I said before before we got down here. The issue is Dr. Husel's statements haven't been admitted. The defendant may not use the same rule to introduce his own out-of-court statements. And that's true. Now, some of you might think, well, why can't you introduce your own statements? Because, it doesn't work that way. And, the hearsay rules don't work that way, but also remember, it's the criminal justice system, and it's in favor of the state. So you have to find a different way to get stuff in. And now the other hearsay exceptions don't work here, such as like an excited utterance or present sense impression or effect on the hearer. Those wouldn't work in this situation because the doctor was expecting something to come out. Yes, and because they're stating that, there's an issue now with Rule 703 that there's whether or not it must be excluded. The issue then becomes, because he spoke to Dr. Husel, he's going to say Dr. Husel did nothing wrong, which then they're going to claim influences his endorsing of the defendant's credibility. And that's not what an expert testimony can be. Now, you can have character witnesses who come in and say, I've known William Husel to be a man of good character in the community, and that's fine, but that's like his neighbor or his pastor. It can't be an established doctor who you're trying to say is an expert on the medical issues. The province of the jury is regarding, they can't say people weren't truthful. That's why you don't have, for example, like in a police officer, you can say, do you believe this guy to be telling you the truth? That's objection. The credibility of a party that hasn't testified and isn't testifying, no. The jury can determine whether the cop's being truthful, and the cop can say, yes, guy told me X, Y, and Z, but I found out A, B, C. That now, and the closing argument, the prosecutor can say, guy's lying. It's the jury to determine whether or not people are telling the truth, ultimately. So, They also determine who's credible. They are the charge. It's their sole job. They are the finders of fact. It's not the court's job or anyone else's. They're called the finder of fact. The judge is called the finder of law. So now this is interesting, and if you want to see and understand, well, why was the state allowed to opine on his intent? And the state gives their explanation. The state experts were permitted to opine on defendant's intent as it was clear their testimony did not fall into the two objectionable categories above. Now that's true. They could say, it's my opinion this was done intentionally. They're not saying anything Dr. Husel says is a lie or you can't believe him. They're just saying, based upon what I see, this looked intentional. There's no reason for it. It's outside the medical rules. This stuff is reckless and dangerous. That doesn't infect Dr. Husel's credibility or his believability. So that's where that goes. I agree, Shannon, he's an expert. So many options never mentioned by other doctors. Yeah. Anesthesiologists are some of the most highly trained doctors you'll deal with on an average basis. I mean, going to dental school is you're pretty much an anesthesiologist because you put people under on your own all the time. It's a nurse anesthetist as well. That's where the big money is. Well, here's the deal. Hold on, Shannon. This doctor is kind of like a palliative care doctor. The court hasn't ruled yet, so it's not all for naught. Bob, I'm going to paste your message regarding summary. Don't know if Sean saw it yet. Complete summary report is at the end of the motion. Oh, okay. Sorry, Bob, I missed that. I will go ahead and then screw it. Let's skip to the end here. Okay, yeah, here we go. Let's just get to this. Let's get to it. I'm Joel Zivit. I'm being a mind and lawful age, hereby stand under perjury as follows. This is what an expert report is. It's an affidavit. Okay? I'm an associate professor down at Emory Medical School in Georgia. I've completed my training. See, I got my training as anesthesiology and critical care medicine at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation in Cleveland, Ohio in 1995. I wasn't trying to toot my own horn and just say woohoo Cleveland stuff to you guys. The Cleveland Clinic is one of the best hospitals in the world. I mean, it's up there with the Mayo Clinic. I'd argue even better. People from all over the world, heads of state come to the Cleveland Clinic to get their stuff worked on. It's one of the best. He is at Case Western University. That is also in Cleveland. That's right next door to the Cleveland Clinic. He has maintained medical contacts in the state of Ohio and familiar medicine in the state of Ohio. Now, that's different than the other doctors. Dr. Ely was from the state of Tennessee. This other doctor, Dr. with the Jackie Jaws, he was from Florida. So he's not exactly an Ohio doctor. I do think that's important. He's practiced anesthesiology for 27 years and has performed or supervised the care for 47,000 patients. That's a lot. He's allowed to prescribe narcotics by the Drug and DEA. Okay, so here we go. This is the part. Of the 14 charts he looked at in this case, he's reviewed them all. Dr. Husel's a skilled anesthesiologist and intensive care physician. It's my contention Husel's actions he sought to provide comfort at the end of life were in no way consistent with the statute under which he's indicted. His actions were directed entirely towards reducing the pain of dying, and in no way he was seeking the death of his patients using prescribed treatments. I hold this degree to the highest degree of medical certainty. I note that in every instance, the decision was made by family members, and that's the thing they do talk about. The defense is brought up every time. Well, did you sign a DNR? No, but we talked to the doctor about DNRs and doping him up and just making him pass easy. So once again, it's not as though Dr. Husel's just walking around going like, oh, they're dying. Shoop, there's a bunch of fentanyl. No, that had already been discussed. And if it wasn't with Dr. Husel, it was the other parties, other doctors. So, to withdraw ongoing medical treatment to allow natural death. They had a variety of severe and unrecoverable illnesses. Recovery to a normal state of health was not possible. In each case, the underlying medical state was the proximate cause of death when supportive and resuscitative treatments were withdrawn. Now, that is true. When you want those medical death certificates they showed, these people have died of a primary illness that wasn't fentanyl overdose. The fentanyl overdose just kind of exacerbated things. He did the purpose of easing the pain of dying. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It can be administered through a bunch of different ways. Yes, intramuscular injection, by a transcutaneous patch, the original way they did it. Injecting the spinal fluid. Oh, Jesus. That doesn't sound fun. Or delivered via inhalation. Yes, you can snort fentanyl. Fentanyl is commonly prescribed to relieve severe pain, including the pain associated with dying. I think I mentioned this before. It was developed for that purpose. Hospice patients, morphine wasn't taking care of it, so they came up with fentanyl and carfentanil. He talks about here fentanyl works and the way it works. More discussion about fentanyl, how it works. Prior exposure to opioids like fentanyl stimulate the production of additional opioid sensors. This is a phenomenon of a need to increase the dosage of fentanyl or other opioids. That's tolerance. And if you heard every time these doctors talked, they admitted if you were in like the OR, you go through a ton of fentanyl. Well, if these people had just got through the OR, there's a ton of fentanyl in their system, their body can handle it. So it sounds like Dr. Husel, and I think this might be the defense's argument, he just went and gave it a ton. I'm going to make sure this clears the tolerance and takes care of this person. I think that might be their ultimate reason why they explained why he did what he did. Okay, well, actually, the doctor may explain this here. The degree of tolerance after exposure varies, is not measurable or knowable precisely. Broadly, the longer a person has been exposed, the more likely is for tolerance to be observed. Fentanyl and opioids have a dose-related effect on normal respiration. The drive to breath is related to the level of carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. Circumstances where carbon dioxide is chronically related, as can be seen in some respiratory conditions. Pain will act as a strong stimulant to breathe, and when a person is in severe pain, the opioid needed to blunt the respiratory drive is greatly increased. Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot because when you're hurting, you are breathing. You're alive. The dosage of fentanyl, it varies broadly. Fentanyl is considered a safe drug in this regard. In an average 154-pound person, that corresponds to 7,000 micrograms. Even at this dosage, fentanyl has minimal to no effect on the blood pressure. Death is sought. Fentanyl are not used owing to the safety parameters. Animal and human euthanasia do not use opioids as a primary chemical to cause death. The use of fentanyl, Dr. Husel would be aware of the difference between euthanasia and pain relief in dying, and this explains the choice of fentanyl. So they're pointing out that fentanyl doesn't drop your blood pressure. It slows down your breathing. But your blood pressure stays the same, which I guess makes sense. I didn't really think about it that way. But that's a really good fucking point. Really, really good point. Here they talk about the accidental death or ingestion, unknown quantities and qualities of fentanyl, unmonitored, and there's nobody there. That's why he's pointing out, because we all know this nowadays, fentanyl and the overdoses from it. But he's explaining that's not been administered by a skilled anesthetist. It's junk. You don't know the qualities of it, and nobody's there to step in to save people. And he's trying to explain why you shouldn't worry about that. And this is where, finally, we see a doctor who's admitting he's just like Dr. Husel, an anesthesiologist with a specialty in critical care. Is clinically important and useful drug. Fentanyl enjoys a unique therapeutic niche. Critically ill patients are particularly sensitive. Reduction in the strength of heart muscle contraction when exposed to drugs other than fentanyl when used for controlled pain and agitation. I don't really know what that means, but I'm assuming it's reinforcing what we already know. 10 of 14 cases, Husel also prescribed the injection of the drug midolazine. It's a benzodiazepine. Okay, that's why that makes sense. Drugs of this class are used to here chiefly reduce anxiety. They can be used to treat or prevent seizures and offer a state of sedation. It can cause amnesia. This has no effect on the respiratory drive and does not really pain a dosage at any amount. Okay, so right now we've got two drugs that don't lower blood pressure or stop breathing. So how did he kill these people? Um, Now, I didn't think about this from the medical side, but if he's administering stuff that doesn't kill you, then how did he kill them? Um, Now, if they were smart, I think they could. The defense could have Dr. Zivit, if the court were to strike this all down, he could say, excluding the talking to Dr. Husel, and he could just testify to midazolam and fentanyl. And if you get to the bottom of the paragraph, it's a safe drug, particularly in dosage range under the consideration in these cases, and a fatal dose of it is very rarely reported. Sounds like it's really hard to overdose on that. Apparently, this is a common thing for surgery procedures. It's also used as an agent in palliative sedation, which we're talking about palliative care. In these cases, one may use an injection followed by a constant infusion of it to get sedation. Jesus Christ, this guy keeps going. Yeah, they get to, is this, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Doc, how much more are you going to say? Okay, yeah, so if you guys go back up here, we'll talk about real quick. Things by St. Thomas Aquinas. He's a famous theologian, was also a doctor and an ethicist. He talked about things intending to produce a good effect, even though it might produce an unintended bad effect. Getting a little bit into theology and philosophy there, but we'll skip along. The doctrine is further refined by bioethics today, which talk about reasonable and less risky alternatives have been exhausted. There is one action with at least two foreseeable effects. The act itself is good, or at least neutral. One effect is bad while the other is good. The good effect is the discrete event towards which you're aiming, not one's further intention. Good and bad effects are not mediated by intervening agents. One foresees the bad effects, but only intends the good effect. So this is what doctors have to do when they're trying to weigh what they want to do and what they're trying to achieve. Bad effect is not the means by which the good effect is accomplished, and the act is proportionate in two senses. Its means are employed are proportionate, and the potential benefits are proportionate to potential harms. So that's just a big cost-benefit analysis. And here he explains it, and he applies those things here. Just talking about, this is probably the best way to handle it. And then he ends by saying he believes that based on his review of the records and in conversation with Dr. Husel, these were done for the sole purpose of providing relief of pain and anxiety. Such actions reflect the best bioethical principle, and that's that final paragraph here. This also, he points out, fentanyl and midazolam for relief has been utilized by physicians in the U.S. and internationally. So he's trying to say this is nothing new. And I think the testimony every once in a while points out this isn't exactly something new. This isn't unheard of. He just did it a little bit differently. Okay, I'm sorry, catching up with you guys here. Yeah, if the doctor testifies, that's it. Well, parallax. That would be the high dosage was said to inhibit breathing. Maybe artist, maybe not. But that's once again, it's like we don't know because we don't know how much it's affecting each person. But parallax, you were mentioning the hearsay aspect. Yes, if he had just reviewed the charts, he could make that determination. But he also spoke with Dr. Husel. Now, I'll also put this in the same vein as when, for Kim Potter's trial, the expert sat down and talked with Kim Potter. So, how is that improper? It wouldn't be improper if he hadn't talked to Dr. Husel. If he hadn't talked to Dr. Husel, this would be, you would never, oh, okay, that was, oof. Okay, that was not what that was. I was not looking for Kyle there, guys. Okay, you might get that joke. If he had just looked at those, this wouldn't be an issue. But it's the states jumping up and down and pissing and shitting their pants. because he spoke to Dr. Husel. But if he was just going to opine based upon the records, he'd be no different than any of the other doctors involved. But unlike the other doctors involved, he conferred with Dr. Husel, and this guy's like, okay, this makes total sense to me, being a fellow person who does stuff that he does. Now, somebody brought up there's a second motion in limine that was filed. I'm assuming this is the state defendant's response. Oh, they're getting a second doctor they want to kick out. Okay, let me see. Oh, geez, it's a 51 page motion. Jeez. And this guy is a hold on here, let me see. Oh my gosh, this dude's got a baller CV though. Okay, we're gonna do this guy. We're gonna do this guy next. Um, Sorry, I was just scrolling through it to see if it was worth it. That's very true, Bob. There's actually a specific part of the Ohio Revised Code that says if they're providing comfort care, they're immune from prosecution and immune from law because they're trying to do the right thing. I forget which part of it is under the Ohio Revised Code, but it's a specific state law statute. But they're pointing out and they're arguing, well, he was trying to kill people and doing it recklessly and, all that, so he's not covered. But I'm sure that they're going to bring that up and they're going to try to introduce this as a defense when they get to their part. Here we go. So they want to exclude the testimony of Gorang P. Patel. So it's a pharmacist. That's what I kind of thought it would be, a PharmD. So he has a doctor in pharmacy and a master's in pharmacy. Apparently they think he's going to talk about the issues of causation generally. I think that might be blown because if I remember things right with the pharmacists for the state, they went down the road of causality and what was dangerous and what was too much. So this might be a problem. Hold on there. Sorry, had to take care of something. Uh, Somebody had something they wanted to tell me. Um, so I would argue at this point, without specifically going through all their testimony prior, some of these pharmacists talked about, well, Critter, yes, to an extent, but these pharmacists are not medical doctors. So they wouldn't, like the anesthesiologist can truly make that determination. The pharmacist can say, generally speaking, what drugs do and what you should expect or be concerned about, but they wouldn't be able to look at a chart truly and give you the same thing a anesthesiologist could. So I understand that, but I'm pretty sure the pharmacists who have testified for the state, maybe intentionally, maybe not, ran down that road and opened the door already. But let's get back to it. Mr. Patel's not qualified. He's also not qualified to opine on dosing decisions or the decision regarding when to withdraw life support. Okay, the dosing decisions, they already had the pharmacist talk about that, saying, whoa, this is way too much, and this was dangerous, and you shouldn't have done it, and Dr. Husel's the bad guy. I don't see how they can get away with that now. Now, I grant the state's job is to try to exclude things, but Jesus Christ, you guys. This is kind of dirty pool, I would argue at this point, especially what's going on. Mr. Patel has admitted these limitations under oath and prior testimony. Maybe there were other hearings, or maybe there have been civil things since. Offering opinions outside of your area of one expertise is prohibited. Yes, if you're an expert in engineering, you can't comment on art unless you happen to be an expert in art. So once again, they talk about Daubert and they talk about Rule 104. They go back through and they're going to relay a lot of that information. The first part of this is going to be a canned brief. So we're going to skip down to, here. He's not a medical doctor. No, duh. His report, no, provides no base what education or experience qualifying to make cause of death determinations. Based on that logic, I'm not sure why they had the other pharmacists talk about why that was so much fentanyl. But here we are. And I'm sure Jose Baez is going to run down that road and, clap him with a bat for that. So we'll just get down to, here we go. His, is my opinion that the withdrawal of care is very time sensitive. Okay, I don't think anybody can disagree with that. But yes, he's not a doctor. He might not be able to say that. Unless otherwise directed by the family, the patient should be removed from life support as soon as reasonably possible to avoid possibility of further suffering or perishing on life support against the wishes of the family. I don't know. I think a pharmacist can make that. But the decision to the appropriate dose of medication to be used on the end of care is based upon many clinical factors. I think that's a very generalized statement that an expert would say. There's a lot of factors that's outside of things, but reviewing these cases as a whole, it's clear the medication doses administered can be seen as not enough to cause death. See, I disagree with that. If he's a pharmacist, he can tell you what these drugs do and what does a ton of these drugs do in these situations. So that one definitely should be allowed. While each case presents different medical nuance, it is apparent from the overall review of the cases that the comfort care medication did not lead to or cause the death of these patients. Okay, yeah, I don't believe he would be able to say the cause of death because he's not a doctor in the medical sense. He's not a pathologist or an anesthesiologist. That one, I think, probably has to come out. And then here, in my opinion, that Dr. Husel didn't cause harm, I don't think he can make that determination. But the rest of it, I think, is fine. But if he's not, if a pharmacist can't comment on appropriate doses and like what's being done, what good is the pharmacist to be there? But anyways, this is the it's a 51-page thing, guys. We're not gonna chug all the way through it. They hammer down a lot of the same roads as before. They bring up different things. Hold on here. Oh, so we had deposition testimony. Okay. So, when asked whether a large dose of medicine could cause someone to stop breathing within 5 minutes, Patel responded, "I don't know. I guess it's possible. I don't know." When asked if he had an understanding as to why one of the victims died 22 minutes after administration of the medicine, Patel said, "I don't know. I can't. I have no opinion. Those are all factors. I don't have a crystal ball." Well, I think that's a fair answer. People are different. Everybody dies differently. I mean, they had that nurse today, that ICU nurse who was Husel's BFF said, "I have no fucking idea. People die on their own schedule. Everybody's different." Also, guys, I am really trying to. I received a comment from somebody I know who said, "Gee, Sean, you're swearing a lot." I'm trying to cut back on that a little bit. So, yeah, when asked how quickly the drugs ordered by the defendant could cause death, Patel again answered, "I don't have an opinion on the time of death from these drugs." Finally, when asked if he's done any research on how a 2,000 microgram dose of fentanyl would affect an individual, Patel responded, "No, I haven't done any research on what 2,000 micrograms does on a patient." Okay, well, then why did you bring up the pharmacists who were saying, "Oh gosh, guys, that was really bad"? I think the state's going to be in some trouble there. They've opened the door. But anyways, like if you guys want to see what a CV, a curricular vitae looks like, this is his curriculum vitae. As of right now, he is the pharmacy supervisor in adult critical care and operating room. He's at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, Illinois. Not a bad hospital. Not the Cleveland Clinic, but pretty good. He's internal medicine pharmacy residency in St. Louis, Missouri. He's been trained at Truman State University, St. Louis College of Pharmacy. That's actually pretty well known. That's a good place. He's got his Doctor of Pharmacy. He got a Master of Science in 2008. Professional experience, he's listed through here. He's also been a advanced practice nursing, teaching nurses. He's probably been pharmacy instructor. He was a pharmacist at Walgreens for a while. Pharmacists make decent money. He was on the editorial board, it looks like, for a journal called Critical Care Medicine. He was also published in the Society of Critical Care Medicine. As an abstract reviewer, he reviewed manuscripts. pharmacology, drug safety, manuscript reviewer. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, wow, this is impressive. And some of you might think, wow, this is kind of like a look at me. Yes, a CV is basically a look at me. If you ever see people with their professionals jokingly call it the I love me wall, where all their plaques and awards are all over the wall, just like an artist with all their gold records they've sold. Yeah, he looks fairly well accomplished, very credible. Um, I think compared to the pharmacists that were used by the state, this guy is far more competent and has far more experience because those guys are just like, well, pharmacist, I work for the hospital. These guys are like, I did some pretty cool stuff. Um, yeah, see, I think there are some things here though. His publications. Um, Here though, if you look at this one here, acute adverse drug effects in critical care. I think that's what we're talking about. Um, I think that's important. ICU function in the area of multi-resistance. I mean, maybe that counts. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. Looks like he wrote a bunch of articles that he's collaborating with people on. I mean, look at this guy's thing. Like this dude is a good expert. He ain't cheap, and this is like the expert you would want, not just the schmucky pharmacist working at the hospital where your doctor worked at. Not saying that guy was a schmuck, but like, notice the state didn't get a guy like this. Notice the other expert. The state didn't get a guy like this. I think that's very important. That tells you a lot. Who could find somebody willing to talk to them? Apparently, it didn't seem that hard for them to find this really accomplished guy. I mean, look at this guy's CV. This is impressive, actually. I mean, look at it. Just goes and 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 goes. So here's his opinion. He talks about the charts he reviewed and the records of. These are all the people he's alleged to have killed. Withdrawal care is time sensitive. In fact, the CDC proposed in their 2022 guidelines prescribing opioids and management end-of-life care. Those maximum doses are not applicable in this particular setting. Oh, interesting. So if you want to look at the Federal Registry from this year in February, apparently Dr. Husel was operating kind of within bounds. Apparently it's talking about the double effect. The doctrine of double effect outlines during the end-of-life care, physicians are making the patient as comfortable as possible. Even the medications may shorten their life. I don't know. This guy, I think an expert who's willing to say, I'm not sure, I don't know, when a specifically pointed question, I think is actually, it's been my experience, that's a good expert. An expert who seems to have an answer for everything, either they're really smart or they're bullshitting. So, I don't know. Dr. Patel, I seem to like. But here they include, this is the transcript of that hearing they did of that thing, and it's they shrunk down the pages and they have a couple of pages here. It just goes through it all. So the defense hasn't had a chance to respond yet. Sorry guys, we ran through all that. Yes, Matthew, it's your time to gloat if you want, since you were right. Yes, Bob Murphy, the defense has a motion to dismiss the whole case. They do, and I think at this point, I think they've got a fairly good chance, and I mentioned this before. It's called Rule 29 under the Ohio Rules of Criminal Procedure. And they're going to point out that a reasonable jury could, even viewing the facts most favorably to the light to the state, could, come across a conviction for Dr. Husel. I think they've got a very compelling argument. Now, Judge Holbrook is going to deny that, and he'll give the defense a chance to prove their case. And at that point, I think they may win a directed verdict. Once again, you got to show the intent to kill. Yeah, hi, Deanna, or Dina. I know you can pronounce it either way. I don't think they're being. Here's the deal, Parallax. I don't want to attribute to them they're being bingers right now. They're trying to pull a binger. Um, I think that I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here, so I'm not going to go that far yet. I do think they're like, oh, they're starting to panic. Yes, and the judge. Well, and that's Bob. You're correct. The judge says he needs to hear it all, and since he knows the defense is going to put out their well, Bob, the motion to dismiss you can bring up at the end of the state's case because remember, Husel doesn't have to do a thing. They can sit there and play Sudoku the whole time, and there's nothing anybody can say or do about that. Now, the judge is probably going to hold off because he knows the defense has evidence they want to introduce. Um, if this is the quality of stuff they've got some bangers up their sleeve. I think this is going to be impressive. Um, I hated typing the CV for my docs. When is the state made aware of defense witnesses? I'm sure they were aware of this witness. They just hadn't had the report yet. But it sounds like there were report issues from the state side that were just kind of brushed off. Have charges been brought against his wife? Dr. Husel's wife? I'm not sure what she did. So unless she was in the ICU, I'm not sure. Deanna, not sure what you're getting at there. Um, yeah, you gloat. I wouldn't do that. Um, yes, to the sheep warrior, the Pied Piper of sheep. Um, so, artist, you missed the nurse today. It was the ICU nurse that worked at nights with Dr. Husel. Uh, he basically said, yeah, Dr. Husel was good. He didn't do anything wrong. He was awesome. Just like everybody else who testified from that hospital. Everybody liked Dr. Husel. Dr. Husel was awesome at his job. Nobody had a problem with him. So apparently he's this secret killer, though. That's why, yeah, guys, I just have a problem with it. What the fuck? Huh. I am going to look that up right now. Also, you married a nurse? Dang, she oh my god. Holy shit. What? Okay. Thank you for bringing it up. That is, I did not know that. Apparently Bob did. Uh, I did not. So, yeah. What? What? Whoa. Okay. Mariah Baird is listed as a nurse in the medical records associated with the case involving Jan Thomas. Uh-huh. I'm, you know, just spitballing here, but if I was a doctor and my significant other worked in the place of me, I might want to work in a different department or maybe at a different hospital. That just seems like a bad idea waiting to happen here. Um, whew. Ooh, so yeah, she was one of the 34 patients. Okay, so let's see here. An amended version of the Thomas lawsuit. They were married in North Carolina in 2017. And, okay, that's it. Huh. I don't know if Jan Thomas is one of the ones that's being, talked about, though, for the victims. And actually, here, we'll go back to Dr. Patel's thing, because he'll list all the people's records he looked at. I'm a little, That's interesting, though. I did not know that. Yeah, Jan Thomas does not... Oh, Jan Thomas is one of the 14. Maybe there's a reason why. That explains a lot about why, Good spot, Bob. No, that... You know, I'm handing out gold stars to a couple people today. Good jobs. Dang. Um, do I think that's part of the reason why they aren't going after these nurses or anybody else? Possibly. I also just think at the end of the day, the nurses are just doing what they're told, and they didn't do anything wrong. They followed doctor's orders, so you know, normally you can't say I was just following orders, but you can in some situations. Ohio Board of Nursing. Let's see if she has her nursing license. So let's see here. I'm curious. I'm sure some of you are too now. Share Ohio Nursing. License, certification, complaints. Maybe here. Types of applications. For records check. Name and address change, license. Continue education, wall certificates. No. Oh, huh. Hmm. Oh, okay, here we go. I think I found it. Okay, yeah, here we go. Ohio Department of Professional Licensure. Um, this is a little different than the stuff I showed you guys before, remember, for the attorneys. But let's see if she's on here still. Last name Baird. Search. Oh, board. Nursing board. Oh! Whoopsie poopsie. Um, I'm assuming this is, well, there's only one Mariah Baird, so, yeah. So, she's suspended. Uh, the county of Pickaway County is just outside of Columbus and Franklin County, so that makes total sense why she would live there. That could easily be her. The city of Orient, yeah, that could easily. I mean, driving from, I mean, heck, I'm gonna Google that right now. Actually, Orient to Columbus is actually not a far drive, so it would make sense. Yeah, from where they were, it was a 20-minute drive from Orient, Ohio to Columbus. It's like 15 miles. So totally makes sense why they would do that. Also, chat is frozen, so are you guys still alive? Or am I the one that's dead? So please say something. I'm getting lonely. Oh, the nurses have all their own lawsuits as well. And they certainly do, but I think, okay, we're alive. All right. And they do, but I think at the end of the day, there's only so much. I think there's only so much liability to really have. The hospital's the one truly that are liable. I mean, I'm sure a lot of other nurses got suspended out of this. I mean, I remember we talked about it the one night, like at least 150 people got fired. So, um, we'll try medical board to see. Husel is suspended, but let's see if he shows in Pickaway County. Huh. Okay, so it shows him working at. Okay. Oh, he's a doctor of osteopathy. Okay. But yeah, I didn't know that. I thought he was an MD, not a DO. But doesn't really change anything nowadays. But yeah, he's suspended too. I think we all knew that, but interesting. Um, the board action, yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, the medical board went ahead and said, "You killed these people. You're done, bro." Uh, they don't have to operate on the same level as a court case does. So he was cited in 2019, based upon six specified patients. He caused excessive doses of controlled substance, reporting in their death. He also didn't cooperate during an investigation. Now, in Ohio, and it's one of the only place I can speak of, not cooperating with your licensing body in an investigation can get you suspended and can get you in deep trouble. Now, in his situation, I don't blame him because anything he says there could be used against him in a court of law, and it's all discoverable. So, yes, if you think you might have committed a crime, your license, okay, losing it's a big deal, but them using it against you put you in prison. Once again, shut the fuck up. That might be your best bet, and hopefully that's the strategy here. Presumably it is. Based upon a citation here, he was again cited by the medical board. Yeah, once again, over excessive fentanyl dosing. And that, oh yeah, he's been summarily suspended because he presents a danger of immediate serious harm to the public. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. Jeez Louise, man. I can't believe they, actually, let's go back and see if they did Mariah. No. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, here we go. Enforcement PDF of you. Share this. No thanks. Oh, we can't look at it. I guess I need a licensure thing here. I guess that's protected information. They won't let me see it. I'm not really sure how to get to it from here, so won't let me see anything there. Oh yeah, going down a rabbit hole, but that's I was actually on the phone with a fellow attorney tonight dealing with a rabbit hole regarding some expert testimony that he's going to have in a trial coming up next week, and I'm going to help him put together, working on a motion with him to crush the prosecutor's ability to use it at trial. So, yeah, it's easy to run down a rabbit hole very frequently, and it's fun when you start just going down and digging more and more. But yeah, I will say I appreciate you guys doing this because you guys, you're into this and you guys have some free time while you're looking and doing all this. So, no, thank you so much for bringing all that stuff up because I can only look at it so much during the day when I'm trying to work on, all my other junk. So, thank you. Um, yeah, so, yeah, I still think, there might be, if he wins, that defeats all the wrongful death actions, really, I would argue. Even though the standard of proof is not the same, it's really going to be. I can see there being some settlements. His malpractice carriers will probably cut a couple of checks, and those people will get told to kick rocks. Charles, how are you doing? Thanks for stopping by tonight. Um, so yeah, that's kind of it for things, everybody. A little interesting. Oh, have I rescheduled with Ricada? Not yet. Guys, it'll happen. I'll just double check my emails right now. Yeah, have not heard back from him yet. I told him, kind of my schedule's kind of opened up right now. I don't have anything pressing that's super huge. So, I just told him to get in touch with me. I know he was busy. I know he was on somebody else's stuff earlier today. Um, but we'll set that up. We'll get it done. You got here late tonight. Hey, no big deal. It's the internet. Can always rewind it later. Um, but yeah, we'll work that out. I was looking forward to it, but I understand he got sick. Hey, last week when I had trial, I was dragging ass too, so I understand. Um, wasn't COVID, but I was not feeling good, and it was rough. And you guys saw what was happening. I was getting a little sleepy last week at times. Was not caught up yet. Um, but it will happen. When it does happen, I'll let you guys know. I only brought it up when I did after he had already disclosed it because it's his show. Yeah, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's SCOTUS nomination, she's going to get confirmed. Whether or not you like her or don't like her, she will be confirmed. That's going to happen. That there's no question about it. I think it's just a matter of time. Do I think she's the right judge for the role? No, Kim has not talked to me about getting his appeal yet. Neither has Chandler Halderson. Even though I reached out to Chandler. Chandler, bro, I'm still here, man. I'm just reaching out to you. I almost got you. I almost got you. But no, neither of them come. Neither of them knocked on my door. As far as things are concerned with her, uh, I mean, here's how I look at things. The Supreme Court is the Ivy League mafia. Other than Judge, Amy Coney Barrett, they're all Ivy League people. They've all gone to Harvard, Yale, Columbia, um, UC Berkeley. I think is where Ginsburg had some education at, and UC Berkeley is probably one. It's like top 5 law schools in America. Um, you also need to handle the appeal for Edgecombe. Yeah, well, if I'm handling the appeal for Edgecombe, I need some of that B. Ivory Lamar money. Uh, I ain't doing that one. I ain't doing that one as court appointed counsel. Um, but as things are concerned, it's great. Another judge from the Ivy League. This judge went to Harvard. Like, why can't we find a judge that went to, like, North Dakota School of Law? The Kentucky School of Law? God, as much as I hate to say it, Ohio State, even though Ohio State is a horrible school full of god-awful people who spell with their hands all the time the same 4-letter word over and over and over and over and over again. If you haven't noticed, I don't like Ohio State. It's one of the reasons why I don't like Columbus. Ohio State is there. Um, Also because the people in Columbus try to make laws that infringe upon my life. But we don't have, like, the Southwest Arkansas Tech School of Law. Nobody is on the Supreme Court from there. The last justice who read law and didn't go to a formal law school and have a formal law school education was former Chief Justice Robert Jackson, and that was back in the 40s, and he got through and took the bar in like 1910. After that, every other judge, a lot of judges had gone to law school. But the trend recently has been you got to be a fancy pants Ivy Leaguer, and I don't like that. Aside from that, I mean, this whole idea of her necessarily being like pedo friendly. Chandler's got some steaks in his freezer for it. Hey, you know what? I have not had long pork, Charles. I'd be willing to give it a shot. As long as it's not brains, I don't want the prions. I don't want Creutzfeldt-Jakob. If you haven't ever read about that, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, Google that. I'm sure you will not go to sleep tonight if you do. Yes, Critter, they all teach the same law. It's not the Ohio State University. Yes, actually, artist, I do like Michigan. Okay, Matthew, I'm still trying to be serious. I'll get to this one in a minute. As far as the whole issue of her necessarily being like pedo friendly, um, when you look at what happened there, and I know Ted Cruz, as much as I think generally he's got a lot of good points, there's an issue of, so yeah, she deviated and departed from the federal guidelines, but the bigger question is, why is the prosecutor deviating from the federal guidelines? Why is the prosecutor saying, like, we need to cut them a super low deal below what's normal? Like, that's the bigger issue. Why is the federal government with, pedophiles saying, like, oh, that's okay, we're going to give them less. And then the judge gives them less than that. I'm more upset about the DOJ at that point. Now, the one thing I will say that I do think she said that was utterly fucking stupid. I know I was trying to not swear, but this one's really hard not to. When she talked about the idea of, oh, well, in the internet, it's so easy to get pornography. It is. Well, it's easier to get child pornography. Presumably so than the way it used to be. But the idea that some of these people may do it because they want the challenge of trying to get child pornography. That they want to collect it. These aren't fucking Pokemon cards. They're pictures of kids doing sexual acts and people doing things to children. 2 10-year-old boys cornholing each other is not like trying to collect a gold Pikachu card. So that part of her argument, I think, is absolutely bullshit. But the rest of it, and then the idea of like, oh, well, maybe there's people who do it who really aren't pedophiles and don't have a sexual attraction. No, if you're collecting pictures of little naked kids, it's because you probably masturbate to them because you have a sexual attraction and you're a deviant. So no, I think that part's nonsense. Now, the arguments she brought up about sexual registry stigmatizing and all that, those are academic discussions that could be had and can be raised. I don't agree with that nonsense, but she should be allowed to bring that up and talk about it. But the idea of like, oh well, we've all, you collected baseball cards as a kid, and you might collect now, you might collect Ferrari hats. The guy, your neighbor down the street, collects pictures of naked 9-year-olds. It's the same thing. It's just the challenge of completing your collection. Gotta catch 'em all. Um, Conservatives have to be Federal Society members. I was in the Federal Society in law school, but then they charge you a lot of money once you're done. So once you're an attorney, and I didn't pay. I ain't paying for that. Um, can you define woman? Well, I'm not. Yes, that part was nonsense. And I get she's trying to not get the blue-haired vote all riled up and oh my God, you're apparently we can't use science in this case. Oh my God, and getting all the blue-hairs upset. So I think that was her trying to be very political. Doesn't look good because remember, that doesn't sell good to most people. She catered to like the 1% on Reddit. That one's not, like I said, people make dumb mistakes and say dumb stuff from time to time. I really have a problem with her whole argument that, like, it's okay. Once again, naked pictures of 9-year-olds are just like me trying to collect, like, collecting Glock pistols. It's perfectly normal. I'm not a biologist. Yes, I'm not a biologist and I'm not suicidal. That's Jesse's next point. I'm not a scientist either. Um, yes, artist, go blue. Yes, I love the University of Michigan. Never went there. Almost went there. That's another story for another time. Uh, Probably won't ever be on here, but that'll be a I'm drinking at a bar story. But yes, I love Michigan. Now, some of you might think, wow, you live in Ohio and you like Michigan. Yeah, as a kid, like the color blue. I also like to be a contrarian. Now, some of you might think, well, you're shocked. Most of you are thinking, well, that makes a ton of sense. And my girlfriend who's watching this right now, I'm pretty sure, is like, well, no, duh. But yes, I like Michigan. I do not like Ohio State. So, Matthew, does attorney-client privilege still count if your meeting isn't a blanket for it? Yes, I would argue it would. Now, the issue is, can you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in that blanket for it? I mean, if you speak too loud, other people might hear it, and you may inadvertently waive that privilege. But yes, if I had a client who wanted to meet inside his blanket for it, as long as there were no girls allowed, and it was, part of the, He-Man base, sure, we can have a discussion in there about whatever they want to talk about. In terms of the law on adult human female, if she had said this, holy shit, that would have really got people fired up too. And that was her trying to avoid the landmine of Reddit, but that would have pissed all the same people off. Twitter would have lost their mind and tried to burn her down as well. So no, I don't think that really would have helped her too much. She didn't want to be called a black J.K. Rowling. uh, I'm really trying to avoid getting too political on things here, at least on my channel. Maybe if I was on Ricadas, I might discuss some things, but I guess I'll say right now, Charles, no lies detected, at least on my end. No lies detected. Oh, you were a Youper for a couple of years. Oof. You didn't have to be like, here's where I live. Oh, if you're not, people in Michigan, when they try to explain where they live because Michigan looks like a mitten, they go, well, I live right here. Or I live way up here. And that's how they describe where they live generally. Jeez. Well, at least you guys give me some good laughs, too. I appreciate that every week. Sean, it's safe. Fairly sure the only other people here are keeping warm on the fire. Oh, is that a Chandler Halderson thing that he had a blanket for it after he killed his parents? That's kind of baller. Um, I mean, you go kill your parents and you burn them in your fireplace and then you build a blanket for it. Much respect. William Einemann, if you ever go to Munsing, it's a beautiful city in the Upper Peninsula. Um, there's a there. With that being said, I've been up through the UP, up through Mackinac, up to Sault Ste. Marie. But yeah, I'd love to go like along the North Shore of the UP. I've seen pictures. It looks like a beautiful drive. Also Marquette, the ore bridges, those massive steel structures they have. I've been told those are beautiful to see in person. Um, so yeah, I definitely actually going along the UP. The only issue is you got to get all the way there from where you are, and for me, it's like 4 hours to the UP from like Toledo up there, and I'm like 2 hours east of Toledo, so that's a full long ride. Free Chandler, cats are the real villain. Yes. Also, William, thanks for stopping in. I don't think he saw you comment earlier. Hey, and actually, Matthew, the way you're saying this, like, so it's like I get to consult with the client in his pillow fort, and then there's a barbecue. Like, man, like, what's not to love? Especially as a big fat guy, like that speaks to me. And actually, Charles, I'll say this: my mom went to Michigan Tech. I forget where that is up in the UP, but that's where she went to college for forestry management. Kind of weird for a lady from Brooklyn, New York, but hey, she really liked it. Wow, hour and 41 minutes. You guys sure can make the time fly. Uh, I'm glad you guys are sticking around, but yeah, like I mean that you guys really can help make the time fly. So, um, I think that's gonna be it. We're gonna wrap some things up. Uh, Unless anybody's got another pressing question. Once again, this makes me think like either I'm froze or you guys are froze. Because you guys are just then it's just quiet. Um, I cleaned out my entire closet listening to you. Well, I'm glad I gave you something to listen to while you're doing your work. Um, oh yeah, well, yes, the fat naked lesbians with their boobies flopping around all over in the summer heat. Yeah, I know that's living the dream while you're eating barbecue. Looking out from across your domain as you step outside your blanket fortress like a true king, watching some lesbians ride around on a lawnmower and flopping around in the sweat. Hey, Charles, I appreciate anybody stopping by and saying hello. So trust me. If you watch them later too, that's all up to you. If you never watch them, that's fine. I just appreciate anybody who shows up and stops by. Comments are always fun as well. So guys, that's it for tonight. Like I said, I'll get things set up for Critter and Gabby and Matt. You guys can decide what you want to do. If you guys just want to screw around, totally fine. If not, you guys want to call it a day, we'll just meet back up on Monday and probably start back up with Dr. Husel. Yay. Um, doom scrolling through stupid takes on Twitter. Yeah, it takes the edge off. Oh, yeah, well, don't worry. I'll be doom scrolling on Twitter a little bit later myself. So, uh, all right, you guys. Well, have a nice night. Thanks for stopping out. And that'll be it. Good night.